My teachers did not understand, like, didn't even try to understand. I'm like, you guys are educated adults. Like, you're educated, you have a university degree. Like, why can you not understand that I needed a chair in an assembly?
Hi everyone, welcome back to this week's episode on Take a Pain Check. I'm excited to have Jenna joining me today. Jenna, can you give me a brief introduction about yourself? Tell me a little bit about your education, your hobbies, what you've been up to recently.
Amazing. So my name is Jenna Kedy, and I'm all the way on the east coast of Canada in beautiful Nova Scotia, where I've lived my entire life. And I'm a 21-year-old, well, almost 21-year-old, arthritis and fibromyalgia warrior and advocate, as well as a mental health advocate. And I've been involved with Take a Pain Check for about a year and a half now in the ambassador program and on the youth board, as well as some other smaller subcommittee roles. And I also am a student full time at Mount St. Vincent University. I'm part of the Canadian Medical Association's Patient Voice, as well as I'm a mentor with Impact Trials. So I do a lot of advocacy work, and it's so fun.
And we'll definitely talk more about everything you're doing because you're so busy and I feel like you're doing so much. So we need to talk about it. But I want to start off by talking about you mentioned your diagnosis as juvenile arthritis and fibromyalgia. What led you to go see a healthcare professional and what was the timeline of all of this in your life?
Absolutely. So my mom always knew that there was something up kind of with my health, my whole life. A few things that always kind of popped up is my hands were always super puffy when I was a kid, and she kind of noticed that. And I also couldn't feel pain. So I could be like walking down the street and fall down and get terrible scrapes or get absolutely scratched to pieces by my grandparents' cat at the time. And I would not cry or get upset. So that made her kind of worried because she had worked with kids like a lot and I just didn't feel pain. And if you know, kids can be super over dramatic, but I was not that type of kid. So it's like I just couldn't feel pain. So she kind of always knew that there was something a little bit different about me. And as I got older, I learned that I kind of was always in consistent pain. So I thought that pain was like the norm for everyone because I mean that's what I was born with. So I had didn't have the outside experience until I got a little bit older and learned about pain and how pain works. And then I ended up, my mom went to the pediatrician and the family doctor, just like bringing it up. And they were like, oh, like growing pains. Maybe she's super clumsy. Maybe she's just a tough kid, like little things like that. So it kind of got brushed off as well as I was injured often. So I had broken like 4 bones and I had sprains and concussions. Like I could not keep myself, safe from injury. So I ended up in the ER a lot. And it was also a lot of a conversation of why is this kid getting hurt constantly? But again, they just thought I was super clumsy. I was super active in sports and physical activities. So, it's kind of inevitable when you're doing, run club and dodgeball and playing in snow forts because we're in Canada. So you get hurt a lot. But it was just a lot more than the typical. So we always kind of brought it up. And nothing ever happened. And then when I was in grade six, so the November of grade six, which would have been November 2015, I'm coming up on my 10-year diagnosis anniversary. I ended up getting like my first what I call like flare situation. So I ended up with like rashes all over my body and like puffiness. I could barely walk. I had like the numb and tingling sensation feelings, super nauseous, like bad. So I ended up going into the ER a number of times. And first off, they thought maybe it's a bad flu, maybe she needs antibiotics. Because I mean, at that time, there was some pretty severe virus going around in my local community. And I go to school in the germ world. So I went on antibiotics and tried and rested and did fluids and ended up taking like probably 5 or 6 times before I ended up getting referred to the rheumatology clinic. So I went to the pediatric rheumatology clinic. And then they diagnosed me with juvenile idiopathic enthesitis-related arthritis, which is actually a rare form of arthritis, which was a pretty interesting diagnosis to receive. And then a number of years later, I ended up developing some pretty significant back pain and some other chronic pain. So through that experience, I ended up starting with physio to see maybe did I injure myself because I was in gymnastics and probably injured myself. But unfortunately, the pain didn't go away. So I went under a pressure point test and I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia in like January 2019. So when I was 14 years old. So yeah, so that's kind of how everything like happened.
Was this over a span of a year, a few months? How quickly did you get a diagnosis? Did you have any problems getting diagnosed?
I always kind of had the symptoms, and my mom kind of always knew, but she wasn't really aware of what juvenile arthritis looks like because I mean, there is until I was diagnosed. There's a massive lack of like information just out in the regular normal people world about JIA, unfortunately. So she wasn't aware of like what it looked like or stuff like that. So she didn't know how to pinpoint it, but she always like brought it up. So it's kind of like it took me 11 years to get diagnosed because now everything I know about arthritis, I had symptoms from birth. So it was definitely like an 11-year journey. And then as after I had my first flare from getting referred up to the pediatric, probably took me about a month to finally get that referral. But once that referral was in, it was like they were really speedy. So once I got into pediatric rheumatology, they sent me for the x-rays, the blood work, the whole 9 yards to kind of see what it was. And then probably after around 3 to 4 weeks of testing, I got my diagnosis. Fibromyalgia was definitely trickier. That one was probably around a year to 2 years of like symptoms before I was able to diagnose. But I don't know if you know this, the general public listening probably does not know, but fibromyalgia is complicated. There's not a specific test or anything. It's kind of just you figure it out as you go. So that one was understandably a little bit harder to figure it out. Where arthritis, it was like they x-rayed me and it was there.
Fibromyalgia is really tricky, and I know a lot of people that are diagnosed with it, but then they don't have any like specific treatment options for it. They don't really know how to navigate fibromyalgia. Some people are like, we're seeing a rheumatologist, we're seeing a neurologist. There's no specialist specifically for it, and again, it kind of gets put
No,
in this category of like, I don't really know what this is, so let's give you fibromyalgia. So, like looking at symptoms, how do you differentiate what is fibromyalgia, what is juvenile arthritis?
it's so hard. And I also live with mental health challenges. So I struggle with like anxiety disorder and depression and some mental health stuff, which, if you did not know, mental health illnesses can cause some pretty significant physical symptoms in your body. So it's sometimes very confusing to know what is going on. So I actually got to go to my rheumatologist on Monday and I felt very like validated because I was thinking, is this pain that I'm in my anxiety disorder? Because I've had a pretty challenging winter for like seasonal depression. But no, my arthritis is still very much there. But trying to pinpoint the exact like fibro to arthritis is super hard. It's something that I've like learned a lot about. But I honestly think it's like the arthritis in itself, when the arthritis is being challenging, it makes the fibro like because fibro is reactive. So it's like anytime there's like arthritis, I feel it everywhere. Which is hard. But like there's not like a specific skill to know how to pinpoint it. It's just you kind of figure it out and you talk to your doctor and it's pretty easy to like find out.
So can you talk a little bit about your medication journey and what that's looked like? And also, I'm kind of curious to know the specific differences, and maybe because you've talked to a lot of people with arthritis, like what's the difference between your specific subtype of arthritis versus mine, which is polyarticular JIA?
Yeah, so my form is very rare. Not very rare, but it is considered a rare disease on Orphanet, and I did not know that until recently, which is so funny because like through my advocacy work, I was able to learn I have a rare disease, and I'm like, okay, it makes sense why things are so difficult. But JA in itself, as we know, not the public does not know, JA is an umbrella of a lot of things, a lot of subtypes, and a lot of people doing a lot of stuff under JA. And then if we put in like all over rheumatic disease, which is what Take a Pain Check does, that's a lot of stuff. It's not like just one diagnosis, it's a lot. So the form that I have is rare and it's mostly in boys. And it is counted as a rare disease. So basically my form causes a lot of problems in like my tendons. So it's like my tendons also get active JIA and it also it's like it's so complicated to explain, but it can also have a lot of pain in like your stomach. It can cause a lot of migraines and like different symptoms that you don't really see with others. But it's also with the form that I have, it's mostly in boys, so there's not a lot of research specifically like with women with it or research on it in general because it is a rare disease, and anyone in the rare disease community knows that it's far and few for the research that we have right now. So that's why my medication journey is a long one. So basically, when I was diagnosed, I went on methotrexate right away. I've been on a methotrexate now for almost 10 years since the day I was diagnosed, never been off it. So that happened. And then I started on prednisone, which was absolutely horrible. Don't like prednisone. I've been on it once since for an eye infection, but prednisone's horrible. It ruined my mental health. I was falling apart, but that happened. And then I went on sulfasalazine, which did absolutely nothing. It was just like whatever, like a pill to like be fine. And then after sulfasalazine was, and I was on methotrexate at the same time, like the double. So once I was on that, and then we had to do the conversation about biologics. So my mom, as because I was like a minor, she did a lot of research before she like fully said yes, because it is a lot of money and it is like really not good for your body to go on biological medication. But then after enough research and this was obviously not working and like trying all of our avenues, like biologics are the last resort beyond all the other treatment because of how much they ruin your insides. So I ended up going on Humira first, and 2.5 years of Humira was great. I felt like great, got me through my first couple of years of junior high, called her a miracle drug. It like worked so good. And then stopped working. So then after that stopped working, I ended up going on Enbrel, had one dose of Enbrel. I'm allergic to Enbrel, so yeah, that didn't last very long. Then I went Simponi for 3 years, 2.5, 3-ish years. And then that worked really good, was like okay. And then my symptoms get to be like way, 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 way too much. So then after Simponi, I've been on Remicade now for the last almost 3.5 years. So it's been working pretty good. But we've just upped my dose from every 8 weeks to every 6 weeks. Still in methotrexate. I was on naproxen like twice a day, every single day for like a couple, like many years, probably 5 years on top of my biologic. Then my kidneys failed. So don't go on naproxen twice a day every day. Maybe don't do that, but I did, and my kidneys failed. So now I don't take any NSAIDs because I'm like actually scared of them. But that's kind of like in an eggshell. Like that's the journey I had, and now I take Robaxin and Tylenol is needed, but like no Advil.
I mean, good to know. You've had a journey with the medications. I've also had a journey with my medications. Like I was on prednisone, methotrexate, like all the biologics too. Do you constantly have something in your mind where you're okay, like maybe at one point this is not gonna work and I'm gonna have to like change my medication? Every medication I'm on, I'm like, it's gonna stop working soon. And I don't want it to stop working, but there's always that like thing that perhaps it will, and then what am I gonna do next?
It's just like it's a cycle, and like you mentioned, it's like you're just gonna go on something, and then it'll be a couple of years, and then you'll need to go on something else, and then it's like it's a cycle for sure. And
Yeah.
it's a challenging cycle because I want to bring up in this podcast where I haven't seen a lot of people talk about is like I want to have kids in like the nearest future, and there's like no research or education on a lot of the meds. So like there should be because like I don't know what I should be on when I'm trying to have children. Like no idea.
Like same for me. I didn't know some of these medications or just
Yes.
being involved in research. Even I think someone was telling me that for men, like being on sulfasalazine can lower your sperm count. I
Yeah.
didn't know that till I started coming on this podcast and
I
talking
know
to
it's like
someone.
so crazy. Even like methotrexate, like I've been on methotrexate for 10 years now, and it's used for abortions in some places. And I told someone I know on the weekend about that, and she's like in her 20s and was on it, and no one told her that. She could not get pregnant on it. And then I said that to her, and she was like, the healthcare system should be educating you on that. You should not have to learn that through a friend when you're someone in your 20s starting methotrexate. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
There's so many gaps in the communication.
And then also there's the leflunomide, which my rheumatologist has always been like, don't go on it because then like there's a lot of pregnancy related things that like wouldn't be good. You have to like flush out your system or something, she was saying. So, like
It's not. This medication's too much. Like it's too much.
so being diagnosed like as a teenager and then now a young adult, obviously you've had a school life and a social life. So I want to talk a little bit about what that was like. How did you tell people around you that you had these conditions if you did? And what was that conversation like?
So I was diagnosed before my teens. So I was 11. So I was still in elementary school when I was diagnosed. So I think that was helpful too because like I did all of junior high and all of high school with it. So it wasn't something that I had to like learn because I always consider like if I was diagnosed now, I think my coping strategies would be a lot crappier than they were when I was 11 years old. As depressing as it is that it like impacted my childhood, I was a lot more resilient back then. Kids are resilient as heck. So I was able to learn to live with it and now be fine. But basically, at the time, I did bring it up with a lot of people, but a lot of people did not understand. I did not understand what was going on. So I understand that my explanations were probably not good to my peers and my classmates. I think the biggest thing that now, as I'm an adult and I get so angry, is my teachers. My teachers did not understand, like, didn't even try to understand. I'm like, you guys are educated adults. Like, you're educated, you have a university degree. Like, why can you not understand that I needed a chair in an assembly? I remember there was a time my mom actually worked at my elementary school. She was like a lunch monitor. And my teacher used to go like get mad at my mom and like talk to my mom because I'd advocate for myself and my specific needs in like class. Like, for example, in assemblies, I wanted to sit on a chair because it was better for me than to sit on the ground because I could not get up unassisted. And there's 400 kids in the school. Like, I don't want to be embarrassed, like, if someone needing to help me. So I asked her for a chair. All the teachers sit on chairs, mind you, and she didn't let me and then got mad at my mom because my mom did explicitly write a letter detailing that. So it's like not listening to your students is like such a red flag and like something that I experienced a ton. And I know it's not just a me experience, But basically I like told my friends what I could. I definitely feel like in like junior high and high school, I definitely leaned on a lot of like volunteer work and a lot of like nerdy communities, I guess I could say. Like I definitely was a Y soul. I was an only child growing up, so I always wanted to give back to my community and be a part of like council and GSA and Jack.org, and like I did all of that. So that's kind of what kept me sane. And then in grade 9, I found the youth advisory council at the hospital that I went to. And then I just started doing advocacy like all the time. And that's where I met like a lot of my core friend group. Um, so that's kind of how it went. But I also went to camp every summer. So I went to a camp called Camp Join Together, which is hosted through Brigadoon Village. So in Nova Scotia, Brigadoon Village is just a chronic illness camp. Like nobody else can like go to it. It's every single week is a different like illness. So I went in arthritis week, and that's where I made some of my like favorite people. And those are some of my like favorite memories of that time was there because I felt like, I could just like be myself and not need to like hide. And then fibromyalgia. When I was diagnosed with fibro in grade 9, it was so challenging to find anyone that I could relate to because fibro is so far and few in young people. And I remember joining, Facebook connection groups and making posts. And it was all these lovely people sending me kind, positive messages. But they were all older women and they were so kind to me, but they were all older and I couldn't like relate to them, you know what I mean, about life, because they were just another generation. So then I ended up through this random Instagram account. I don't even remember what it was. I ended up finding this like fibromyalgia like teen group chat, which now is like really don't join that if you're 15, but I did. And it ended up being super great experience. And I ended up meeting like two people that are like my best friends that I talk to like every day. And they live in Georgia in the States and in Saskatchewan. And they are my favorite people. And I've met both of them in person. So they're my favorite humans in the whole wide world, and they both have fibro. And that was how I like found that connection because finding people with fibro was hard. But arthritis, I live in little old Atlantic Canada, and our camp has 100 kids. Like it's not hard to find people with JIA to come play in the woods. So I felt very connected in that area.
When we think of fibromyalgia, there's a lot of young people, especially in our organization too. Like we have some people that live with
Yes, I've met
fibromyalgia.
a lot of people.
We just don't really know what resources or information we can give about it because there's just not that much research done on it or not much information, which is really unfortunate. We have a team member that had JIA and now has fibromyalgia, or we've had a team member that had arthritis and now additionally to that has fibromyalgia. And you know what to do for JIA, but then for fibro, you're like, what do I do? So I think
Mhm.
it makes things super tricky.
It is hard.
And then, I mean, I was diagnosed at 13 with JIA, so I didn't really know what was happening in my body, so I could not really explain that to other people. So I totally relate to you. Like, I tried my best to explain it, but I think as I grew older, it was so much easier for me to explain what my arthritis is and like what that means for me and what I can and can't do. And I also realized you don't need to tell everyone and anyone now. You can just tell people close to you. I mean, yes, me, it's all over the internet, and maybe you too.
Same.
So I'm like, maybe this doesn't apply to us, but I think for people that are listening, you don't have to tell every single person about your
No.
arthritis if you don't want to.
No, you don't need to tell anyone. Literally, you don't. But it does help when you tell people. I think for me personally, people didn't know. I'd feel like, I don't know. I think for me, it's like I was saying I learned at camp because it's like your disability doesn't define you is what you're like told by like doctors and your parents because they're like, it doesn't define you. But like I like to say, yes, it defines me. Like it makes me freaking cooler and like have a cooler life story and things to share, which I don't know, maybe that's not the best way to look at it, but it's like we can advocate and like be more sparkly in the world because of our like lived experience. So that's kind of how I looked at it because I'm like, I don't care. Like, even people in my own family are like, why are you so proud to be like, you're disabled? Like, you say that on the internet. And I'm like, because it's a good time, because I'm allowed to be proud of it. And it's not something that people should be afraid of. And I hope that, I mean, me and you, the stuff that we do in the media can hopefully make people see that it's not, those labels aren't bad things and that they're happy things. But again, if you don't want people to know, you don't need to tell them. We just like telling people.
Yeah, I think it definitely does make a difference, at least for me. And
Yeah.
because we've become advocates, it's different. But if you're just trying to get through your day to day, you just really need to
Mhm.
tell people that will be able to help you, if that makes sense. I've also had problems with like teachers. I think that's the biggest thing is like at one point it's definitely your peers just like not really understanding, but then they're not unless you get bullied, which like I did in grade 8. For me, it's kind of
Yeah.
rough. But for teachers, I think that they're the ones that just don't understand that we need more education about invisible disabilities, what accommodations are. They have accommodations, but they don't even know what that means.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that doesn't even just go with arthritis. It goes with even disabilities that aren't invisible, which is the depressing part. I know in Nova Scotia, I do a ton of volunteer work with like the intellectually disabled community and like that community. And when I hear their stories about how they were treated in school, it like rips me to pieces. And that's why when I went to university, I wanted to be a teacher, but now I could never do that. Like I would lose my mind because of how horribly they treat people with disabilities. Like it drives me nuts, and I would like lose my job because I'd get mad at everyone for being mean to people. But that's like a whole thing. I think they're definitely like the education system in Canada specifically needs like a leg up because we make schools look like they're inclusive, but they're not. They're very much still in that kind of, like especially even like intellectually disabled people or people with visible disabilities, like they can come to school, but they can't be in a room with their friends. And like, what does that teach the neurotypical kids about, the other kids, or even arthritis or any type of invisible disability? Like teachers just don't care. They don't want to help you, and they're not given resources to help you. So this is not me saying I'm mad at teachers, because I think teachers are like amazing powerhouse people that like kudos to you, because I could never do that. I do not have the patience anymore to deal with that system. But I think that they're not given the tools to support us. It's not that they don't want to. And that's something that I think I would love to see happen in the future. And hopefully we can advocate. I know we've done some work in getting things into schools. It's been a slow, steady pace to get arthritis education into schools, but it was definitely hard. It was the easy things. It was like needing a backpack because my junior high banned backpacks for whatever reason. And we were allowed to carry a binder. And because of my arthritis, it was challenging to, carry just a binder. And I had to go out of my way to call my occupational therapist from my children's hospital to write a letter to the school to let me carry a binder. Or like when I was in grade 12, I was done all of my credits and I only had two left, and I wanted to take half days, like to make life easier. And I didn't want to take a technology like credit because I didn't need it. And I didn't want to sit down for an hour a day. And they were like, oh, call your rheumatologist to get a letter out. Like our healthcare system is backed up enough, and to require people to do that to get supported in their education, which is such an easy from like most stuff, as I just noted, is so easy to provide. It's so annoying. It's so annoying, and it's a cross Canada experience for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had rough journeys, even in university. It's not just elementary school or high school. Yes, things kind of get better in a way that you know how to navigate accommodations alone and you don't need that parental support all the time, at least for me. But I think it's just there's still people that just don't understand and don't get it. They're like, oh, we don't see anything, so why do you deserve this? Even though there's like full-fledged documentation saying I need this.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pretty lucky that my university has a pretty great accessibility department. But it does, like, I know that we have a member in one of our programs from Australia, and she was sharing how they have like a full-on office that they go to like get their stuff moved over. And I'm like, here, you're given a paper and then do it yourself.
Have you ever had people make comments or talk negatively about your disease in particular?
Absolutely. So like when I was in school and started sharing about, my medication, like in junior high, I was bullied and told that I was a drug addict, and like people were going around saying all this like crazy stuff about me, which at the time really bothered me, but now I think it's really funny. But that's the main thing that happened, and it really affected my life. Um, but also just like now in general, like I don't find I get bullied now, or I don't notice if I get bullied, because I think I've gotten past that. Like, I mean, if you're gonna bully someone for their disability, like you're more of a problem than I am, and I'm mature enough now to see that. But when I was little, it definitely bothered me. But nowadays, there's not really a lot of negativity that comes through. I think I surround my social media and my life with positive vibes. Um, the main negativity is like not even my family is like so supportive of me. It's just like some people in my like close family circle that are like not understanding of why they have really good intentions. Like they don't understand why I do the work I do, because why would you put yourself out there with that vulnerability, like with that amount of vulnerability? But these are the types of people that wouldn't be as vulnerable as I am on like a podcast or on an international level. They would not be as vulnerable as I am there at a dinner table with people that they're very close with. So they just don't understand how I'm like able to be so open, and they worry that like, will that hurt me in the future, or will I get bullied? And I really don't care. So it's fine, but that's just the main negativity from like my close circle of like Are you sure that what you're doing is like okay? Are you worried about how people might treat you? And I don't care. So it's fine. But they've definitely brought that up. And I think in the disability advocacy space, because I even think disability advocacy is a little bit newer for the amount of people that are like doing it, or patient advocacy. And a lot of our lives we're told not to share these things. So, but I'm like, if no one's gonna say it, I'm gonna say it. So it needs to be said. So that's what I'm gonna do. So I don't really care. But I know that that's a thing with a lot of people, and I don't think I'm the only one that like feels that way. We just don't talk about it a lot.
Kids always have things to say, unfortunately, and it just happens, I think, because they're just immature. And as someone living with a chronic illness, I think we can both say that we've definitely matured quicker than other people as we were growing up. And I mean, I've had people like make inappropriate comments about my fingers being swollen. Why are you wearing fish shoes? Or why are you lazy? Like, all those like dumb comments. Looking back at it now, who even are these people? No idea. They didn't matter. But then at that point, I was like so sad because why are they saying those things to me? And I don't think they realize the impact it could make on someone's life. Can you tell me a little bit about a common misconception you found that people were saying in terms of living with arthritis?
Just like only old people get it. I think that's the normal misconception that gets brought up in our spaces because it's like it is such a real thing, not even just in the outside world, but also in the healthcare system. I actually had to go to the ER over Christmas, and one of the people that worked at the ER that was following me was like, "Why didn't you outgrow that? Like, doesn't everybody with juvenile arthritis outgrow it?" And I was like, "No." No, they don't. And I had to like explain that to her. And then she said, well, I was like severely ill. She was like, can you have children? Like, are you going to be able to maintain children? And I was like, I'm so sick right now. Stop. So, like, those types of comments within the healthcare system, I think it definitely affect me a lot more because, like, these are people that should be like safe and they're not always safe. And that's why I like advocate and try to teach them how to like be better. But that has happened. But again, just like the comments of like, oh, you're too young to have that, or like, oh my God. I don't like the reactions. Because even nowadays, I still get like, again, they're not mean reactions. But when I tell people that I have arthritis, because nowadays I tell a lot more people, like even in my like other work life, because I still work in childcare. So sometimes I tell the parents, like I'm going on a trip to do arthritis advocacy. And they're like, oh my God, like you're so young. Like I feel so bad. Like I'm like, it's fine. Like it's been 10 years. It's fine. But they're like, oh my God, you're so young. You're so beautiful. And like, how does this like ruin your life? And I'm like, it's okay. Like you don't need to feel bad. Like it's okay. So those reactions again, they don't make me mad, but it's like it's kind of funny because it's like you don't need to feel sad. It's okay. I'm living my life and it's all right.
Yeah, especially when people say sorry or like apologize for you having it. I don't really like that. I'm just like, why are you
Sure.
apologizing? Like, it is what
Yeah.
it is. And I feel like they're coming out of a place of like kindness and they want to be really nice and supportive. But then when they just say, oh, I'm so sorry that you have this, I'm like, okay. Like, I don't
Like,
really know how
I
to,
do, like,
I don't know how to react to that. And I just feel a little uncomfortable. We've learned how to adapt with this condition and make the best out of it despite the obstacles that we faced. And so, I understand where they're coming from, being like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Like, why did this happen to you?" But like, we don't have the answers, and also, I feel like saying sorry to me doesn't make me feel better.
either. It makes me feel like I'm like, well, I think I think you as well, like from what I know about you, like a lot of self-acceptance in myself and like this is the way my life is, but I also am a very like spiritual person, I guess. So I find a lot of purpose in I think I was put on this earth for a big reason. And these struggles are my story, and I share my story and I help other people with my story. And so I'm not mad about it anymore.
That makes sense.
Yes.
Can you talk about your experience in pediatric care and then the transition from pediatric to adult rheumatology care?
Yeah, so I'm actually really lucky. So I've been a volunteer on like a transition of care like committee group at my local children's hospital since I was 16. So because I was a part of that group and like sharing my lived story as it was happening, I learned a lot of tips and tricks from like my team over on that committee, just because there was a lot of, people who've lived it, a social worker that works in that space and like some great mentors, but I understand that not everyone has that. But even with that exceptional leg of phenomenal support from that team, I still genuinely feel like I had a million trillion gaps in the experience transitioning that I had. Take water. Um, so basically, the way that mine worked is I was very fortunate to still stay in pediatrics till I was 18. So I was able to still utilize the ER, which was such a blessing. I hate the adult ER, so I was so grateful to have the pediatrics as long as I did because here it's normally like 16, but I got to go till I was 18. And transitioning was hard because I had a lot more specialists within children's, like, infectious diseases and like other people that followed my care, and then an eye clinic and stuff. So then all those people, because my symptoms have not been super bad, they decided not to give me an adult practitioner. So when those issues arise, I have to get right back on the wait list, which is not the easiest thing. So basically for my rheumatology specifically though, I ended up moving in to a rheumatologist that's actually pretty well known in like the country and the province. She's awesome. And she, I think, like has a connection with my pediatrics. So that's why I got moved to her, which is like I love that for me because she's so good. But even though she's so awesome, it's so hard to get a hold of her or her team because it's just like it's so hard. Where like the nurses at my pediatric, I could call them and like anything would get dealt with like within hours. And now I feel like I'm like falling apart half the time and I have to go to the ER. And the ERs are like 17-hour wait vibes and like exposing myself to so much crazy illness. Um, I also didn't have a family doctor for like majority of my transition until a couple of months ago, so that was really hard because here when you transition, they really emphasize to you that your family doctor, your GP is your liaison, like your person that is means everything. Didn't have one, so that was a little bit tricky and like it's very hard to get to a walk-in clinic here. So there was a lot of gaps in that. But in general, I think transitioning did hurt my mental health more than anything because it was like just feeling frustrated more than ever. I'm not only trying to navigate being an adult and navigating university for the first time, but also trying to be healthy amongst everything that was going on in my life and stay connected to my team. And I found that super, super hard. To this day, again, I don't really have an answer for anybody out there that's listening. Just do your best. Cope. It's hard.
We've also like talked about this before of like going to a really big academic center and hospital and like transition clinic versus just those community clinics out there. And I think that it makes things much harder. And over time you build these skills of like how to be independent and how to manage your own care and all those things, which I think makes a really big difference when you do transition. Do you recall a time when you weren't taken seriously by any of your rheumatologists?
Rheumatology, to be honest, I don't really have any specific like for them. I think I've been really supported in like my rheumatology care, but I can definitely say that like the ERs or my family doctors that I've had over time, like those are like the people that have made me feel really not great about myself over time. Also, I used to see chronic pain at the children's hospital, and it was okay at best. That was when I finally got in there. I was like, okay, I'm gonna see someone for my fibromyalgia, and they like made me feel so invalidated in my like experience because again, fibromyalgia is so like understudied and underfunded, and the doctors don't even really know much about it. So I felt super invalidated in my kind of experience with it. Because it was a lot of the chronic pain clinic is a lot of like as good as it is when you're struggling, it's like go deep breaths, go for a walk, which is like cool, that's super helpful. But like I already knew that I had to do that. So it's not like life-changing medical support. Or even remember one of like the I guess counselors through them at one point. I had like severe strep throat and my inflammation markers were like so bad and I ended up having to go in the hospital, I think 2 or 3 times in like 2 weeks because it like kept coming back. And I felt terrible. And I had a kind of an appointment with my counselor on Zoom, and she was like, go outside, go to the park, go breathe. And I ended up like going into the getting admitted like hours later. So don't always know if that's the most supportive, but that's like the main piece of where I felt invalidated. About rheumatology in itself, I think all of them have like really made me feel validated, supported, and like loved through my journey, which I'm so grateful for.
That's amazing. You have a really busy life balancing
Yeah.
chronic illness with advocacy, volunteering, doing some pageant work. How do you balance all of that?
Coffee and a Google Calendar. That's all I will say. Yeah, it's fun. I like to be busy. I like a plate full. It makes me feel happy and fulfilled, and a lot of that's to do with like my mental health, but also if I'm not moving for a couple of days, I feel like crap. So I like to keep going.
What do you do when you're like, this is too much?
Yeah, that's my like strategy to avoid burnout is that, which I don't know if that's the best to follow, but that and also just like always remembering my why behind everything that I do, but also making sure in between all the busy like worky stuff that I do, I throw in some fun and shenanigans and self-care because that's prioritized always.
Can you talk about the healthcare system in Nova Scotia compared to the rest of Canada? I feel like you've been so involved in healthcare initiatives and just being involved and seeing what healthcare looks like across Canada. So, what are the major differences that you find?
I just want Nova Scotia. A lot of people aren't even aware, but the city that I receive my care, which is Halifax, where I live, we're the hub for everyone in Atlantic Canada. So this one little city, one seed of Canada, is responsible for four provinces of people. That's a lot of people. We're also responsible for the Newfoundlanders and all those people, and it's a lot of people receiving care in one small place. So that's the biggest difference, I think. And also, it's just like our wait times can be a little bit challenging than other parts of Canada. I think the way it is, though, too, is we have such significantly less people, yet our wait times are still incredibly hard. And I think it also has a lot to do with that distance between people and people trying to get where they need to go. But really, a lot of the gaps that we see is very similar to across Canada, like wait times, ERs not being right, not enough staff. Like those are issues we see all over Canada and people not having family doctors, but Nova Scotia is like, I think 50% of the province doesn't. So that's a huge amount of people. I think, I don't know if it's the most per capita for the country, don't quote me on that, but it is significantly a lot, as well as in some pieces, like the technology we have here and things like that does tend to be a little bit slower than the rest of Canada. But the leg up that we do have is that we are a big university province. So we have two, three, four. We have like six major universities, so six major institutions that all train healthcare professionals. So only one of them trains doctors, but there is like four nursing schools, and like the school I go to does like respiratory therapy and nutrition, and we have lots of nursing schools, as I said, and like physiotherapy, and like we're such a hub for people to get trained, but a lot of them end up leaving the province or the country when they're done. But we do have that leg up with the amount of students and research that happens here, which is pretty cool. But other than that, we're just hanging out and suffering. But it's gonna take a long, 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 long time to like fully improve what's happening.
I'm glad that there's still some support in terms of like the university city and everything that's still there till you're able to train more people to really become allied healthcare professionals or even healthcare professionals. So that's really, really great. And I'm glad that it's kind of going in like an upwards direction and not like going backwards in a way. There's a lot of people having meetings and conferences and stuff to discuss healthcare in Nova
Yes.
Scotia, which is really, really great. And people like you being involved in that conversation is even better because you are
Yes.
firsthand a patient that understands the healthcare system. What are the changes that you hope to see in the medical system for rheumatic disease or fibromyalgia patients?
Yeah, so I'd love to see everybody just get supported in a timely manner. And I will never see that in my lifetime, but of course that is my hope. But my main hope for things that I hope to see in the future, I hope I can see social prescribing get used a lot more. I'm hoping we can see more medications coming to Canada, more clinical trials happening. I think that's always a hope that I always pray for. I'm a huge advocate for clinical trials being less red tape like because I think that can really change things. But honestly, for right now, for me to try to, be an optimist, but also be real, and to protect myself, I think with a lot of stuff going on in the world right now, I think a lot of those pieces are far away, but still striving to advocate for those things to happening, but also things that we can do in the healthcare system for not only our community, but all patients in general. It's just I want to advocate to make hospitals more fun, more friendly, and more easier to navigate, because even that piece is so crucial of like making hospitals more of a safe haven for people, because I think in a lot of our communities in Nova Scotia, but also across Canada, hospitals are becoming less safe for different populations. So really working on making sure we keep things safe and patient-centered is where I hope to see. But those things can take easier steps than the whole like let's get more treatment options part.
Patient-centered care is so important, and even like family-centered care, which is something that I talked about like in a panel I was in yesterday, was like not only for pediatric care you like patient-centered, but you're also family-centered
Yeah.
because there are other members of the family that this disease can definitely take a toll on, not just the patient. So it's really important that we focus on that as well. I want to talk a little bit and give some time to your initiatives and interests because you are very, very involved in the community. There has been a big push to bridge the gap between patients and healthcare professionals. What is the biggest difference that you've seen within the past few years?
So I have turned, obviously became an adult in the last couple of years, so my opportunities have been a lot larger. But the big thing that I have seen, so I've been an advocate for 6 years officially, kind of on different roles. But I've started making my income off of it like a little under a year ago. So that's been a huge shift in my own life, but also seeing patient partners getting compensated more often, which is so awesome because I mean, the work we do does take time and energy and love, and it's a lot. So I love that we're getting compensated for our expertise. Which has been incredible. So that's been a huge shift I've seen and something that I continue to advocate for. I've also seen a lot of youth come to the table, and I don't know how that happened, but I think it's a lot of like maybe just worldwide issues or youth kind of learning kind of what's going on. So seeing more youth be involved, but not only youth stepping up, but organizations actually putting the call out to youth and really prioritizing that in their own mission, which has been really fun to see. But my genuine hope that I actually can see happening is I want patients teaching in universities. I want patients working in hospitals. I want patients as a part of every single piece of healthcare. And that's kind of where I hope to see things go in the future. And I definitely think we're on the way there with the way that different organizations are prioritizing us. And I've had the best time as an advocate in all my organizations that I get to be a part of. I do things not only in the rheumatic disease space, but also in the healthcare space in general and the mental health care space. So I've been able to see a lot of people and hopefully make a little bit of change. But the way I see it is my advocacy is just small pockets of history that are ultimately going to make things hopefully a lot better in a long, 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 long time because it takes time for things to progress.
So you work with impact trials to mentor researchers. Can you talk about how this works and how you directly help both patients and researchers?
Yeah, so I through the Impact Trials program, I am one of their youth mentors. So I'm a youth with lived experience that mentor them. And I had my first mentee in the last 12 months, and I just finished with him, and that was an incredible experience getting to like go to meetings with him and mentor him and give him some like advice on different pieces of what he was doing just to make it more family and like patient-centered because it is a pediatric program. So there is a huge family caregiver piece that I've been able to advocate for. And now I'm getting my next mentee in a few months. So I'm very excited to also work with them. And being a part of that team has been beyond incredible. That's actually how I learned I had a rare disease, was through one of my colleagues in that team. And now I'm starting a new position shortly this year with Rare Kids Can, which I'm really excited about because I get to advocate in the rare disease space for the first time on a topic that I absolutely love and want to do more in. So I'm very excited for that. But Impact has been such a good experience. I never thought that I could be in a teaching role to someone with to people that have more education than I've been alive is kind of the role that I've taken, but I've absolutely loved every minute, and it's been so cool to like be able to teach them with stories because I think stories hold so much value, and sharing my story has given me a lot of value.
That's really, really great. And I definitely think that a lot of the times, like, patients and researchers don't really interact or they don't know the value of having patients engaged in research, and patients are afraid to be involved in research. And so, having mentors that can definitely help and give their lived experience, kind of talk about that is super important. You're also a youth board member at Take a Paycheck, an ambassador. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you do in those roles? And I guess why did you decide to join?
Sure. Yeah, so I wanted to get involved with Take a Pain Check because I've been involved with the Arthritis Society a lot, as well as a little bit with Cassie and Friends. Cassie and Friends have done quite a bit of fundraising with them, but also been a participant in some of the activities that they've run over time. But the Arthritis Society, I mean, that was how I went to camp. I've been a part of lots of initiatives with them, and I still am an advocacy volunteer with them. So I did them. So then that's kind of how I learned about Take a Pain Check. And I really like Take a Pain Check because it was like all youth with rheumatic disease. And I'd never really seen something like that before. So that's kind of why I got interested. And I got the ambassador role because it was like the first one that I saw like that was available. So that's why like I did that. And I really enjoy like creating content and writing blogs. I love writing. Writing makes me really happy. So I love that I get to do that in my role. And then for the board, the reason I joined the board is I really wanted to do something that was a little more like, I don't know, grittier, like something that I could like work on for a long time and have like a project. And I'm helping it with this year's project, and I absolutely love my part in the prep I've gotten to do so far. Has been so much fun, and I like have gotten to incorporate a lot of my like outside of medically interest into it. So that's been it's been incredible, and I love every minute of it. It's such a great team, and I think Take a Paycheck is good because it's one of those rare spaces where like 98% of us are youth and we all share very similar life experience, which as much as I love my adult colleagues, I know we're all adults, but my real adult colleagues, I guess, I love them so, so much. I love to have one little space where it's just all youth. And I also get to experience that with the Young Canadians Roundtable on Health, which is more of a general healthcare board. With Take a Paycheck specifically, I love that space with just rheumatic disease because I think it's such a niche community and it's needed.
What advice would you give to individuals who are faced with the fear of advocacy?
If you don't want to do it, it's fine. You don't need to do it. But if you want to do it and you want to get over that confidence bridge, know that advocacy is your kind of journey. You're driving the advocacy car of your own story, and you're not obligated to tell anyone anything, and anyone that you work with that is doing it the right way will tell you that. So you are not obligated to share anything. Share your story in a timely manner that feels good to you. Share the details that you want to share. You don't need to be as loud and proud as I am, or you can be. I think the biggest thing for me was to get over that kind of like confidence bridge was to just stop caring, which is what I've done because at the end of the day, it's a real life thing that you have gone through and it's not something to be embarrassed about or ashamed about, and do things at your pace and that will make it a lot easier to be involved in. Don't be afraid to like hop in DMs of other youth that advocate because there's a lot of us on the internet and from around the world with different stories and different work that we have done. Look into our work and reach out and ask us because most of us like talking to people. So we will be happy to have a listening ear, kind of share opportunities with you.
And what was your journey to advocacy? Like, how did you get started or want to start talking about?
Yeah, so my advocacy journey has been such a domino effect of experiences that I can't even comprehend at this point, but I have loved it. So 6 years ago, this June, I would have joined the Youth Advisory Council at the hospital that I like went to as a kid. And then from being there, I joined more committees with them, and I'm still very involved with them. I actually have a job with that hospital now, kind of in the mental health space, which has been pretty cool. But that hospital, I started with Youth Advisory Council, then went on Transitional Care Committee, the Family Leadership Council, the Emergency Council, which I'm still a part of. I've been a core patient partner piece in building our new ER, which has been really fun. And then from there, I ended up through one of the committees there, I ended up learning about, an Arthritis Society opportunity, and then I found Take Pain Check and Cassie and Friends and kind of all those different ones. And then over time, I've been a part of like research and all of that. So then through all of that journey, I found the Young Canadians Roundtable on Health, which has given me ample opportunities to, advocate in different spaces and some that I didn't know about before, which has been really fun. And same as Take a Pain Check, there's always random opportunities here and there that I've kind of said yes to and worked on. And then through one of my children's hospital committees, they had an opportunity to go to the InfoWay conference in 2023. So then I went there, and there was a huge moment that I got to meet a bunch of people like in our space. And then from that opportunity, I got connected with Kappa and Kai Hi, which I now work closely with. And then through all of my media experience, actually, the Canadian Medical Association found me, which was wild. They found me, and I ended up signing on with Patient Voice in October. So I've been doing that, but they found me, which was so cool. And then I found Impact, I think, through Young Canadians. And then through Impact, I found Rare Kids Can. So it's been such a domino effect, but it's a lot of like, I'm a part of lots of different like newsletters and patient partner networks. And that's how I stay like super connected with my like different groups and kind of just the biggest piece in advocacy, if you want to do it the way that I have, is network. Network, 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 and then you will get yourself in the right places. And I definitely think, Natasha, you've done a lot of networking, and that's why we are where we are. So that's how I would have found Take a Pain Check, and I think a lot of other people is through you networking and getting the word out. So networking is so important. Talk to people. It doesn't even need to be scary talking to people. Just reach out and say hey, and like maybe share a blurb of your story, and you'll be surprised at the amount of people that are like, oh my God, we need someone. And like it's not super challenging, but yeah, for me, there wasn't like a specific thing I did. It just happened.
Thank you so much, Jenna, for joining me on today's podcast episode. You talked about your diagnosis, your symptoms, kind of the loopholes you had to go through to get answers that you wanted. We talked about growing up with a chronic illness, the common misconceptions of, living with arthritis. You then discussed your experience going from pediatric to adult rheumatology care. We talked about the healthcare system in Nova Scotia, comparing it to the rest of Canada. And last but not least, you discussed your involvement with Take a Pain Check, impact trials, other youth boards, and initiatives that you've been a part of. So everyone, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Check out Jenna's social media channels, which I will link down below. And I'll see everyone in 2 weeks on Take a Pain Check. Thanks, Jenna.
Thank you.